Okay, so today we're going deep on September 11th,
Yeah.
2001, and the immediate aftermath.
Right.
It's obviously a really heavy topic,
It is.
but it's also super important, I think, to really, understand what happened. And
Absolutely.
you've given us a ton of great sources here.
Yeah.
So we can really try to give you a clear picture of
That's
that.
the goal. So,
We've got firsthand accounts
yeah, what kind of sources are we?
from the Department of Homeland Security, so
Yeah.
we get that perspective on how the government reacted.
Okay.
We've got the National September 11th Memorial and Museum,
Right.
which I think will be really valuable for the timeline and the, human cost.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we've got some stuff on the public health challenges that came out of this from PMC.
Okay.
And then to kind of round it out, we've got Wikipedia, BBC News,
Right.
and the Naval History and Heritage Command, which has a lot of detail on the attack on the Pentagon.
Okay. So we've got a lot of different angles covered here.
Yeah, a lot to work with. And as we go through this, keep in mind that we're not just going to list off facts.
Right.
We really want to connect the dots.
That'll make sense of it.
What's the most important stuff for you to understand about, this crazy day
Exactly.
and what happened right after?
Yeah.
All right, so
Let's dive in.
let's get into it.
Let's start with the day itself, September 11th, 2001.
Okay.
And, it really unfolds with a series of hijackings.
Mhm.
And to get the timeline right,
Right.
it starts with American Airlines Flight 11,
Okay.
which took off from Boston at 7:59 a.m.
Okay.
and was hijacked about 15 minutes in.
Okay.
Then you've got United Airlines Flight 175,
Okay.
also leaving from Boston,
Right.
8:14 a.m. takeoff, hijacked around 8:42.
Okay.
American Airlines Flight 77 left Dulles at 8:20.
All right.
And then finally, United Airlines Flight 93 left Newark
All right.
at 8:42 a.m.
Okay.
After a bit of a delay, actually.
Okay, so we've got those 4 flights.
Yep.
And what do we know about what happened on those flights? How did those hijackings go down?
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
On Flight 11, they used box cutters as weapons.
Right.
And there was something they thought were explosives
Okay.
and mace.
Wow.
Flight 175, the pilots were actually murdered.
Oh my gosh.
And some of the crew were stabbed before they took over the plane.
That's brutal.
Yeah,
But of course, we also have United 93,
right.
where, the passengers and crew fought back.
Yeah,
I mean, let's roll. That phrase is so powerful.
yeah, it really captures that.
Yeah.
It's interesting, to contrast how it went down on those flights, like
Yeah.
Flights 11 and 175, they took over the cockpits so fast.
Yeah.
And that really shows a weakness in security back then.
Right.
And it makes you realize, how important those changes they made afterwards were.
Yeah, like reinforced doors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And having quicker responses and all that.
Right, right.
But then Flight 93 being delayed, it seems like that gave people time to figure out what was happening
Oh, wow.
with the other planes, and actually organize a defense.
Yeah.
And that's why it ended up crashing in Shanksville, Pennsylvania
Right.
at 10:03 a.m.
Yeah.
So it never reached the target.
Which is, as horrible as it was, at least
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And then we have the World Trade Center.
Right.
It's just unimaginable.
Yeah.
The North Tower hit first 8:46 a.m.
Right.
Then the South Tower 9:03.
Right.
Then the Pentagon 9:37.
Right.
And the impact on the World Trade Center, just devastating.
Yeah, hundreds killed right away in both towers.
Yeah. And it's just awful to think about, around 600 people in the South Tower
Yeah.
above the 77th floor.
Yeah.
Basically no chance.
It's hard to even fathom.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the damage from the planes hitting,
Yeah.
plus those huge fires that started,
Yeah.
that's what led to the towers collapsing. It's also crazy to think about Stairwell A in the South Tower.
Yeah.
It stayed mostly intact.
Really?
And that's how a small group of people from those floors and above got out.
Wow.
It just shows how close it was for everyone,
Yeah.
life or death,
Yeah.
just hanging by a thread.
Yeah. And those 911 calls are just heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
The operators had never dealt with anything like this.
Of course not.
And at first they were telling people in the towers to stay put.
Right.
But then some companies in the South Tower,
Yeah.
they took charge and evacuated right after the first plane hit.
Yeah.
And that saved so many lives.
Absolutely.
And it just shows you how much chaos there was.
Yeah, total chaos.
And how nobody really knew what to do at first.
It really makes you think about,
Yeah.
how information gets passed around during something like that.
Yeah.
And how decisions get made.
Yeah.
Like, some of those organizations just doing their own thing and getting people out. It shows that sometimes you just got to act locally when the big systems are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Or just don't have all the information.
Right. And, of course, all those lives lost.
Yeah.
Almost 3,000 victims.
2,977.
Yeah. Not counting the hijackers.
Right.
And the breakdown by location.
Yeah.
Most in the North Tower.
Yeah.
Then the South Tower.
Right.
Then the Pentagon. Then Shanksville.
Right.
And it wasn't just Americans.
Yeah.
People from all over the world.
Yeah, from so many different countries.
Yeah. What parts of that stand out to you the most?
I mean, the number of first responders who died.
Oh, yeah.
It's just awful.
Yeah, the FDNY lost the same number of people on 9/11 as they had to related illnesses by 2023.
Wow.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the NYPD and the Port Authority police, too.
Yeah, so many heroes lost.
Yeah, they were running into danger while everyone else was trying to get out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, there's still identifying remains.
Oh, wow.
As of 2025, over 1,000 victims from the World Trade Center still haven't been identified.
It just shows you it's not over for so many families still dealing with that trauma.
Yeah.
Without any real closure.
It's just awful.
It is. And it makes you realize, the consequences of that day, they keep going even all these years later.
Right.
So let's talk about the immediate response and what happened after the attacks.
Okay, so right away.
Yeah.
This huge rescue and recovery effort starts up.
Yeah. Massive coordinated effort.
Yeah. Local, state, federal agencies all working together.
Everyone coming together.
Yeah. And the recovery at Ground Zero took forever.
9 months.
Yeah. Ending on May 30th, 2002.
It's hard to imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah. And the government,
Yeah.
They took action right away, too.
Oh, yeah. Immediately.
They invoked SCATANA.
Right.
That's the Special Civil Aircraft Traffic Enforcement Plan.
Yeah, which basically means...
Ground all civilian aircraft.
Yeah, they shut down the entire North American airspace.
Wow.
It was unprecedented.
Yeah, and, Canada even started Operation Yellow Ribbon.
Oh, yeah.
To handle all those diverted flights.
Yeah, all those planes had to land somewhere,
right.
And all those people were stranded.
Right.
Thousands of them.
Yeah.
That's amazing, though,
Yeah.
that kind of cooperation during a crisis.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really something.
Yeah. And, we also see how the government agencies themselves were dealing with things.
Right.
Like the DHS had a recovery meeting at JFK Airport.
Yeah, the very next morning.
Yeah.
Trying to get in touch with all the World Trade Center employees.
Wow.
And set up new workspaces.
Right.
I mean, they had to keep things running somehow.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it's pretty impressive that the supervisors were keeping their employees in the loop.
Yeah.
During all that chaos.
Yeah.
It shows real leadership.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's the whole public health side of things.
Oh, yeah. That was a huge undertaking.
Yep.
So many different groups got involved.
Like who?
New York City, New York State,
Yeah.
federal agencies,
Okay.
private companies, academic institutions.
Right.
Even volunteer groups like the United Way and the Red Cross.
Wow. So it was a really wide-ranging effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were they focusing on?
I mean, it was a lot of things.
Yeah.
Environmental and occupational health.
Okay.
Mental health for the people who were affected, and just general healthcare needs.
Okay. So a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, a ton.
But I mean, there were some big challenges with that public health response, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What-
Well, figuring out the risks from all the contamination,
Yeah.
that was really complicated.
Right.
And there was a lot of debate about it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, for one thing, there wasn't any monitoring equipment in place on 9/11.
Oh, wow.
So they were starting from scratch.
Right.
And the contaminants were spread out unevenly.
Okay.
Plus, the fires at Ground Zero kept burning. And then you had experts disagreeing about the best ways to collect samples and analyze them.
Wow. So it was a mess.
Yeah, a total mess.
So how did they even begin to figure out what the risks were?
It was tough.
Yeah.
And some people even said that, because they wanted to get New York's financial district back up and running,
Right.
they might have downplayed the risks.
Oh, why?
And not given enough information or protection to the recovery workers and the people going back to their buildings.
That's pretty messed up.
Yeah, it's a serious accusation.
And communication was a huge problem too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What kind of problems?
Well, they realized they needed what they call redundant communication systems.
Okay.
So not just having backups, but having multiple ways to communicate.
Right, because if one system goes down,
Exactly.
you need another one
Yeah.
to take its place.
And they also had trouble, really listening to what the community was saying. Like, you had all these official statements saying everything was safe. But then you had all these people getting sick.
Right, with that WTC cough.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it shows how important it is to have two-way communication.
Yeah.
You know, if they had listened to the community more
Yeah.
and to independent medical experts early on,
Right.
they might have built more trust
Right.
and they might have dealt with those health problems better.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. And, we can't forget about the mental health impact.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, all those people in New York City.
Yeah, so much trauma.
Yeah, they had Project Liberty to try to help with that.
Right, yeah.
You can't even imagine what all those people went through.
Yeah, it's just unimaginable.
So Project Liberty was really important to give them the support they needed.
Yeah, absolutely vital.
And the economic impact was huge, too.
Oh, yeah, it went way beyond New York.
Yeah, the stock market took a nosedive.
Right.
The airline industry was already struggling.
Yeah, and then they had to cut back even more.
Yeah.
And commercial real estate in Manhattan was a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a mess.
And if you look at the big picture, you know, the long-term economic costs are just astronomical.
Right.
We're talking trillions of dollars.
Right.
When you factor in all the spending on Homeland Security and all the wars,
Right.
it really shows you how expensive an attack like this is.
Yeah, for sure. And internationally,
Yeah.
NATO invoked Article 5.
Right, which was a huge deal historically.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the war on terror started the invasion of Afghanistan.
Right, to get rid of the Taliban.
Yeah, because they were harboring al-Qaeda.
Right, and then the hunt for Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, that went on for a long time.
Yeah.
But they finally got him. So
Yeah.
internationally, you know, there was this global coalition against terrorism, at least at first.
Right.
And going after Afghanistan,
Yeah.
that was because the Taliban wouldn't hand over bin Laden
Right.
and they wouldn't shut down al-Qaeda.
Right. Right. So let's talk about, who was behind this and why they did it.
Yeah.
So the CIA figured out pretty quickly that it was al-Qaeda.
Yeah, they told President Bush that same night,
Wow.
September 11th,
Yeah.
that it was probably al-Qaeda led by Osama bin Laden.
Okay.
Bin Laden denied it at first,
Of course.
but then he claimed responsibility in 2004.
Right. So what did al-Qaeda say about why they did it?
Well, they said it was because of a few things.
Okay, like what?
The U.S. support for Israel,
Okay.
U.S. military being in Saudi Arabia,
Right.
and the sanctions against Iraq.
Right.
You know, whether you agree with those reasons or not,
Yeah.
that's what they were saying. It
Yeah.
was central to their whole message
Right.
and their justification for doing what they did.
Okay. And then there's Khalid Sheikh Mohammed,
Right.
who's considered the mastermind
Yeah.
of the attack.
Yeah, he admitted to being involved in 2002,
Okay.
and he said it was because he was totally against U.S. foreign policy.
Okay.
You know, supporting Israel. And it's important to remember he was also involved in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing and the Bojinka plot.
Right. So he was no stranger to this stuff.
No, he had a long history of being anti-U.S.
Yeah.
and being involved in terrorism. I mean,
Yeah.
it really shows you
Yeah.
how long al-Qaeda had been a threat
Yeah.
and how determined people like him were.
Right.
And the fact that he was involved in that earlier bombing, too,
Yeah.
it shows that they were really focused on the World Trade Center as a
Yeah.
target.
Right.
It meant something to them.
Right. And then there bin Laden's fatwas,
Yeah.
like the one in 1996 where he declared a holy war,
Right.
and then the one in 1998.
Yeah, calling for the killing of Americans.
Right. And he said the attacks were revenge.
Yeah, for what he saw as U.S. atrocities against Muslims all over the world.
Yeah.
And he specifically went after, you know,
Yeah.
symbols of American power,
Right.
economic power,
Yeah.
military power. So, I mean, those fatwas really lay out his whole ideology and his justification for violence,
Yeah.
you know, against American civilians.
Right.
And he wasn't just being random. He was being strategic.
Right.
He wanted to weaken the U.S.
Yeah.
in every way he could.
Right. And so how did they plan all this?
Well, it involved bin Laden,
Okay.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed Ramzi bin al-Shib,
Okay.
and some others.
Uh-huh.
And there was this meeting between Atta and bin al-Shib in Spain
Okay.
in July 2001.
Right.
And that seems like it was a key moment
Right.
where they finalized the plan.
Okay.
And bin Laden wanted to attack right away.
Oh, wow.
He didn't want to wait.
Interesting.
Yeah, it really shows you how much planning and coordination went into this.
Yeah. A really sophisticated operation.
Yeah, for sure.
And bin Laden probably wanted to attack right away
Yeah.
because he saw an opportunity.
Right.
And he was probably worried that if they waited too long, someone would figure out what they were doing.
Exactly.
And then there's the intelligence failures.
Yeah, that's a big part of this story.
Yeah. So what happened there?
Well, the CIA and the FBI weren't sharing information very well.
Okay.
And that was partly because of laws and policies.
Okay.
And partly because they didn't want to risk exposing their sources and methods.
Right.
So you had this wall between criminal investigators and intelligence agents.
Okay.
And it's crazy because they actually had information about al-Qaeda operatives
Really?
who were already in the U.S.,
Wow.
and they had information about suspicious activity,
Like what?
like people taking flight lessons who were acting weird,
Oh.
but they didn't share that information effectively
Wow.
or act on it.
So we missed a chance to stop it.
Yeah, it's a huge missed opportunity.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, it's really frustrating to think about.
Yeah. And the hijackers themselves.
Right.
19 of them.
Yeah, including the leader, Mohammed Atta. And, they found some of Atta's luggage at Logan Airport,
Oh, wow.
and it had names and connections to al-Qaeda in it.
Really?
Yeah, that was a huge break for them.
Wow.
It helped them figure out who did it really fast.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though.
Yeah.
It also shows that the attackers made mistakes,
Right.
and it shows how quickly law enforcement got to work after the attacks.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty sobering detail
Yeah.
that most of the hijackers were from Saudi Arabia.
Right.
That had a big impact on geopolitics
Yeah.
and U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the longer-term implications of 9/11.
Okay.
So like the war in Afghanistan.
Right. That started less than a month after the attacks.
Yeah. October 7th, 2001.
Yeah, they wanted to take down al-Qaeda and
Right.
get rid of the Taliban.
Right. But it turned into this long insurgency.
Yeah.
And the U.S. and NATO troops finally left in August 2021.
Right. The war in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
It was the longest war in U.S. history.
Oh.
It just shows how complicated it is
Yeah.
to try to build a nation
Yeah.
and fight an insurgency
Right
in
on.
a foreign country.
Yeah.
They got rid of the Taliban at first,
Yeah.
but it didn't last. They
Yep.
came back eventually.
Right. And here in the U.S.,
Yeah.
they created the Department of Homeland Security
Right.
and passed the USA Patriot Act.
Yeah, that was a huge change for the U.S. government.
Yeah, the biggest restructuring in modern history.
Yeah.
But the Patriot Act, it's been really controversial.
Yeah, a lot of people say it goes too far. It infringes on people's privacy and freedoms.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
DHS, that shows how seriously the U.S. is taking national security now.
Right.
Bringing all those agencies together under one roof.
Yeah.
But the Patriot Act,
Yeah.
that really sparked a lot of debate
Yeah.
about, where do you draw the line
Yeah.
between security and freedom?
Right. Right. And then there's the hate crimes after the attacks.
Yeah, that was awful.
All the harassment and violence against Muslims and South Asians.
Yeah, and Sikhs, too.
Yeah.
Just because they look similar.
Right. It's terrible.
That's awful.
And, President Bush actually spoke out about it.
Oh, yeah.
He calls for people to respect American Muslims.
Yeah, it's important to remember that.
Yeah.
It's easy to lash out when
Yeah.
something like this happens.
Right.
But you can't blame a whole group of people for
Yeah.
the actions of a few.
Right. Right.
So Bush speaking out like that,
yeah.
it was really important to
Yeah.
try to stop that backlash.
Yeah, for sure. And, they have these commemorations every year
Yeah.
for the attacks
Right.
on the anniversaries of the 1993 bombing.
Yeah, February 26th,
Yeah.
the end of the Ground Zero recovery.
Right, May 30th.
Yeah.
And then, of course, September 11th.
Yeah, at the 9/11 Memorial Museum.
Right.
They read the names of the victims.
Yeah.
They have moments of silence.
Yeah.
And then there's the tribute in light in New York City.
Yeah.
It's really important to remember, what
Yeah.
happened that day
Yeah.
and to honor the people who were lost.
Yeah. And all the heroes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there are all the health problems
Oh, yeah.
that people are still dealing with.
Yeah, the rescue and recovery workers, the survivors,
Yeah.
the people who live nearby.
Yeah.
So many people were exposed to all that stuff.
Right. All the hazards and toxins at
Yeah,
Ground Zero.
yeah.
A lot of them have gotten sick.
Yeah, they have all these 9/11 related illnesses.
Yeah. It's really sad.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And they created the World Trade Center Health Program to try to help.
Right.
It's just another reminder
Yeah,
that the effects of 9/11 are still being felt today.
absolutely.
And it's not just physical.
No,
It's mental and emotional, too.
right.
It's really important to have programs like that
Yeah,
to take care of the people who are still suffering.
absolutely crucial.
And legally,
Yeah.
there's still stuff going on.
Yeah, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed
Right.
and some of the other guys at Guantanamo Bay,
Yeah.
they've agreed to plead guilty.
Oh,
So they won't get the death penalty.
all right.
But some of the victims' families aren't happy about that.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, it's a tough situation.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what the right thing to do is.
Yeah.
It's been such a long and complicated legal process,
Yeah.
and it raises all these questions about
Yeah.
how do you get justice?
Right.
How do you hold people accountable?
Yeah.
And what about the rights of the accused and
Yeah.
the rights of the families?
Right. Right.
It's It's really tough.
Yeah. And we can't forget about the conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're out there,
Yeah.
even though there's no real evidence.
Right. And the experts have debunked them.
Yeah.
But they still persist.
Yeah.
It's a weird phenomenon.
Yeah. I mean, I guess people want to make sense of something so horrible.
Yeah, they want a simple explanation.
Right.
Even if it's not true.
Yeah.
But it's important to stick to the facts.
Right.
And what the experts say,
Yeah.
what the official investigations have found.
Right. And 9/11 also had a big impact on people's faith.
Yeah, yeah.
Some people became more religious.
Right.
And some people started questioning or even lost their faith.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
When something like that happens, it
Yeah.
makes you think about the big questions.
Yeah.
You know? Why are we here?
Yeah.
What's the point of it all?
Yeah.
And everyone deals with those questions differently.
Right. And of course, there's been a huge increase in security, and everyone's more anxious.
Yeah, especially about flying.
Yeah.
It's understandable,
Yeah.
but it's also a constant reminder
Yeah.
of what happened.
Right.
And anti-Muslim hate crimes are still higher than they were before 9/11.
Yeah. That's really sad.
Yeah, it shows how much work we still need to do
Yeah.
to fight prejudice
Yeah.
and build understanding.
Yeah, for sure. And governments all over the world, they've passed laws to fight terrorism.
Right.
And here in the U.S., they actually put those continuity of government plans into action.
Yeah, right after the attacks.
Wow.
But Congress didn't know about it until February 2002.
Wow.
So, 9/11 has really changed things
Yeah.
in so many ways.
Yeah.
Our security,
Yeah.
our politics,
Right.
our whole society.
Sure.
The security measures we see every day,
Yeah.
they're a reminder of the threats we face.
Right.
And the fact that there's still anti-Muslim sentiment,
Yeah.
it shows that we need to keep fighting prejudice
Yeah.
and promote understanding.
Absolutely.
And the fact that they use those continuity of government plans,
Yeah.
it shows how seriously they took the possibility
Yeah.
that the government could be disrupted.
Right. So we've covered a lot here.
We have.
A ton of information.
Yeah.
From a lot of different sources.
A really valuable collection.
Yeah. So